Welcome to Victor Brauner's Departures and Returns in our series Flight or Fight, Stories of Artists Under Repression. I'm Rachel Stern, Executive Director of the Fritz Ascher Society for Persecuted, Ostracized and Banned Art based in New York. Today, we will hear a presentation by Irina Cărăbaș from the National University of Arts in Bucharest, followed by a conversation with Nicola Baird, who is based in London. After that, there will be time for Q&A, so please post your questions. Welcome, Irina and Nicola. This event is a collaboration with DOR, Romanian Diaspora. I'm now honored to introduce Sorina Neagu, Director of DOR, Romanian Diaspora, who will give some introductory remarks and then introduce our speaker, Irina Cărăbaș. Welcome, Sorina.
Thank you very much, Rachel, and thank you for having us. It is indeed an honor to do this event in collaboration. We are a diasporic organization based in the UK and founded in 2020. Our mission is to support and empower Romanian communities in the UK by fostering opportunities for integration, lifelong learning, and cultural exchange. We deliver a wide range of physical and virtual initiatives and encourage cross-cultural dialogue through creative and community-focused projects. One of our ongoing programs is called Carta de Vineri, or the Friday Book Club, a weekly series that highlights books by Romanian authors or works about Romania, of which Victor Brauner is very much an integral part, inviting reflection and amplifying Romanian voices in the diaspora and beyond. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our main speaker tonight. Irina Cărăbaș is Assistant Professor at the Department of Art History and Theory, National University of Arts in Bucharest. Her interests are the historical avant-garde, Socialist Realism, transnational relations in the Eastern Bloc, and the survival of Modernism in the post-war era. She is the author of the book Realismul Socialist cu fața, spre, trecut, Instituții și artiști în Romania 1944-1953, a socialist realism facing the past, institutions and artists in Romania 1944-1953, and also co-editor of several collective volumes.
Thank you, everyone, for inviting me. And I will start directly with the book I'm going to present to you today. So I'm going to present a book about the surrealist artist Victor Brauner, who spent his career in a constant transition between France and Romania. At first glance, his works with hybrids, transformed human bodies, eroticism, full of fantasies and myth, might seem to align perfectly with standard surrealist strategies and concepts. But today, I want to highlight something different, that is their deeper connection on the one side to the layered social and political context in which they were created, and on the other to how they were received, especially in Brauner's native country, Romania. So the book I'd like to introduce, you can see its cover on your screens, is actually the catalog of a 2023 exhibition in Timișoara, Romania. It's the most recent academic publication on Brauner. While smaller exhibitions devoted to him have taken place in Romania before, this was the first true retrospective bringing together works from his entire career from public and private collections in both Romania and France. Furthermore, the Brauner exhibition was part of the Timișoara European Capital of Culture program, which signaled a recognition of the artist as part of a new cultural image of Romania, aimed both locally and abroad. Such public recognition, rather belated, I would say, stems from the torched path of Brauner's biography, which intersected with difficult moments in 20th century history, and that Romania is still working to come to terms with. In an article for Le Monde about the exhibition, curator Camille Morando, a specialist in Brauner's work, wondered if he would really have been happy to return to Romania. Though the question may seem counterintuitive, she clearly had in mind the difficult relationship Brauner had with the Romanian context, which also affected the reception of his work. One of the most famous quotes from Brauner's writings, he was also a quite prolific writer, was, so, "My painting is autobiographical. I tell the story of my life. My life is exemplary because it is universal." And yet, when asked about the significance of his national or ethnic origins to understanding his work, the artist vehemently denied it. I would argue that these two statements aren't necessarily contradictory. Instead, they maintained a kind of existential tension at the core of Brauner's art, a tension that allowed him to forge his own mythology. Now, a little bit more on the publication, so on the catalog. Here is the table of contents. I hope you can read it. The catalog was edited by the curator of the exhibition, Camille Morando, and it's structured to cover complex approaches to Brauner's work. New interpretation for the displayed works, and also it provides documentary material, a biography, and biographical notes of other artists in order to situate Brauner within his own biography and among his contemporaries. As you might notice, I also contributed to the catalog, more specific in the section analyzing the works included in the exhibition. In my presentation, I will try to weave together both the studies in the catalog and the artist's biography, while discussing individual works featured in the exhibition. So every painting you'll see, except the last one, was part of the Brauner retrospective in Timișoara. So it's like watching now a shortened version of the show. During my presentation, I'll emphasize especially the artist's ties to his homeland and how this interacted with other artistic experiences. The first section of the catalog includes essays on various aspects of his career. A curator's introduction that outlines the exhibition concept, emphasize important, significant works, and the aim of recontextualizing some of them. From this angle, the Timișoara retrospective wasn't just a recovery of the artist's career for the Romanian and also international public, but it also offered new directions for interpreting his work. The first essay by Cătălin Davidescu sketches the context of different stages and avant-garde groups in Romania to better understand how Brauner began his career, to understand his links to other artists, publications, and modernist ideas circulating in Romanian cultural life. This avant-garde and modernist concepts evolved dramatically from the first writings of the young Tristan Țara and Marcel Iancu in 1912, so before they moved to Zurich to found the Cabaret Voltaire, to the immediate post-Second World War period. Though Brauner wasn't always in Romania during this long stretch or present at every event. For instance, in 1912, he was only 9, being born in 1903. The Romanian avant-garde was a crucial experience that later interwoven into or was overshadowed in his practice. From the outset, Brauner's artistic path was far from uniform in terms of everything, of style, allegiance to avant-garde groups, or geographical anchors. These shifting choices gave his career a dynamic, accelerating rhythm. His trajectory unfolded between Bucharest and Paris, shaped by comings and goings. Between 1925 and 1937, he acted as a kind of communication agent between groups, ideas, and artists in both capitals. Genres, themes, style, during these years shifted dramatically, influenced by friends, by the collectives he was part of, and by their varied understandings of the avant-garde. His graphic and painting works from this period form heterogeneous series with few connected elements scattered across multiple collections and never fully integrated. Just a couple of dates about Brauner biography. So he was born in 1903 in Piatra Neamț, a small town with a significant Jewish population, among which it was his own family. After several relocations with his family, they settled in Bucharest, where he enrolled at the School of Fine Arts. Dissatisfied, he said, he had to find his own path. After a Paul Cézanne-inspired phase, he turned towards symbolism, via his friendship with poet Ilarie Voronka. Voronka debut volume Affliction prominently featured Brauner's illustrations. Some of those, in enlarged, adapted form, appear in contemporary paintings, like Old Woman Between Two Girls or Adam and Eve. These biblical scenes are the only clear references to his Jewish identity. In line with other Jewish artists within the Bucharest avant-garde, Brauner aligned with an international art vision. For instance, in the 1920s, back in Bucharest, Marcel Iancu, a co-founder of Dadaism in Zurich, argued that there is no such thing as Jewish art, asserting that nationality or ethnicity should not dictate the meaning of art. Does it mean Jewish identity played no role? Not at all. As Radu Stern argues in his essay in the catalogue, Brauner's childhood carried separation. Before 1922, Romanian Jews weren't recognized as citizens and were denied many rights. After the new constitution, Jewish artists, writers, and intellectuals had a somewhat improved environment for their activities. Yet, public discourse remained rife with anti-Semitism and xenophobic politicians. Brauner's early public works, so displayed in exhibitions, were not exempt from attacks, deemed as signs of mental illness. 1924 was a landmark year for Brauner, both for Brauner and the Romanian avant-garde. That year saw the launch of several avant-garde magazines, an international exhibition of avant-garde art in Bucharest, and the consolidation of a small network of Romanian avant-garde artists, where Brauner, though only 21, held a prominent position. He achieved this through a new, more radical collaboration with his friend Ilarie Voronka, which went well beyond the illustration of 1923. Later, Brauner reflected on this foundational moment in his career, attributing great influence to friendship. It helped form avant-garde circles in Bucharest, foster bonds, and carry out joint projects, even when friends were geographically scattered. In 1928, Brauner wrote in a letter, "Everywhere, modernism began in groups of friends who understood life as a shared journey." In 1924, Brauner and Voronka publish 75 HP, horsepower, the most radical avant-garde magazine in the whole history of the avant-garde in Romania. A publication advocating for art that stood at the confluence of futurism, cubism, Dada, and constructivism. Its singularity lay not only in its luxurious, elaborate graphic design, but also in inventing picto poetry, a new artistic form blending word and image, the verbal and the visual, and of course, painting and poetry. You can see it on your right, I hope. From that year forward, Brauner moved toward abstraction and constructivism, with Romanian avant-garde groups engaging with Central European avant-garde networks. He and Voronka continued publishing in magazines like Punct or Point and Integral. Within this context, Brauner's first trip to France following Voronka was taking place. Though they both explored possible integration into French cultural life in Paris, the break from Romania wasn't complete. There was a substantial Romanian diaspora in Paris. Moreover, Paris was already a well-established destination for Romanian artists ever since the 19th century. While they all share the myth of Paris as the ultimate modernist center, their closer references were probably Benjamin Fondan, a Romanian writer of Jewish origin already living there, or Constantin Brancusi, the sculptor whom the Romanian avant-garde had claimed as both local and international forefather. And of course, there was Tristan Tzara, who collaborated with Romanian avant-garde magazines like Integral during that period and was considered a founding spirit of the avant-garde movement. In the early 1920s, Surrealism was neither on Brauner's radar nor on that of the group he belonged to. Although artists and surrealist ideas were by no means unfamiliar to them. During the last years of the magazine Integral's publication, so this is 1927-28, there was a sort of consensus within the Bucharest avant-garde group to abandon abstraction and constructivism in favor of a return to figurative art. And surrealism grafted itself onto this foundation. The surrealism with which Brauner would identify after 1930 involved before 1930, so before going a second time to Paris. This approach to surrealism involved experimenting with various themes and modes of representation. What could say that Brauner's surrealism was a kind of transfer that began in the context of the Bucharest group, organized around a new avant-garde journal, Unu or One, with surrealist leanings. And moved later to Paris, where it was restructured and redirected when Brauner joined André Breton's surrealist group. So, Brauner's second Parisian stay between 1930 and 1935 cemented the artist's affiliation with the so-called Central Surrealism, leading him into new experiments with subject matters and new strategies of representation. A key work of this identification with surrealism is the self-portrait of 1931, in which he depicted himself with an enucleated eye. This work is actually part of a larger body of paintings and graphic works that question sight and its function. Eyes could appear in various contexts and settings, inside or outside the figure, often taking on independent or substitute roles. Brauner's obsession with the eye, shared with many surrealists and their close associates of the time, such as Max Ernst, André Masson, Alberto Giacometti, or Georges Bataille, oscillates between multiple perspectives or interpretations. The eye has seductive capacities. At the same time, it is unstable and fragile, but can also be active, aggressive. But like a magical object, this painting would exert a lasting effect over Brauner career and person. In 1938, during a quarrel, Brauner really lost one of his eyes. This incident brought him fame among surrealists, as it seemed to confirm the power of art and surreality over reality itself. For Brauner, losing his eye was a confirmation of his visionary powers and a source of empowerment, and also of belief in the existential efficacy of his art. Paradoxically, this partial loss of sight, crucial for a painter, had the opposite effect on Brauner. Instead of limiting him, it became the incentive for creating a personal mythology in which chronology no longer mattered. Also, at the beginning of the 1930s, while in Paris, Brauner adopted some modes of representation and subject matters already present among the surrealist artists from André Breton's group. His focus on the body remained constant, though it diversified in there is I'm going ahead of my presentation. Okay, at a particular subject matter significant for that historical moment and confirming once again Brauner's interest in the political and social context of his time, are several works that directly criticize social and political norms. The Strange Case of Monsieur K depicts the same grotesque figure, either adorned with official honors or dressed in bourgeois suits, assuming dominant and abusive postures. There is a disjunction between the official pomp and the abuses it conceals. From the same period comes this portrait of Hitler, who had just won the election in Germany, but whose terrifying violence Brauner sensed and inscribed it directly onto his own body. Although by mid-1930s, Brauner already had a promising career in Paris, he was forced to return to Romania for financial reasons. There, as Catherine Anson notes in the catalogue, Brauner became one of the activators of transnational avant-garde networks. On the one hand, bringing new ideas and artistic practices from Paris to Bucharest, and on the other, reconnecting with the Romanian milieu and forming new friendships. In the painting made in Bucharest, Brauner recreates the atmosphere of Giorgio de Chirico's works using elements like empty urban spaces, mannequins, and long black shadows. Reality is diverted, and the bodily configuration is under question. A confusion arises between fragment and whole, between body and simulacrum. Bodies seem to lack skeletons or any structure, allowing matter to flow like in Dali's painting, while retaining human features. They fold into inanimate forms, further accentuating the experience of abandonment and alienation. Although he found some old friends, he reconnected with some of them, the context of the Bucharest avant-garde had changed. Most of the former avant-garde artists doubted now the efficacy of the avant-garde and had moved into leftist art circles promoting engaged art. One of the reviews of Brauner's 1935 exhibition in Bucharest highlighted precisely surrealism's inability to meet the urgencies of engaged art. Against the backdrop of growing European fascism and the rise of far-right parties in Romania, as well as the anti-Semitic discourse, these urgencies were more than justified. Other reviews of the artist's exhibition repeated with even greater violence the anti-Semitic cliches that had already been directed at him in the 1920s. In 1935, upon his return to Bucharest, he was seen as a representative of French surrealism. And this is what attracted young poets such as Gelu Naum or Gerasim Luca, who were seeking a kind of pure surrealism. collaborating with the younger generation provided a fertile ground for identifying and consolidating coincidences between poetry and image. Eroticism, anxiety, obsession with the mutilated body, and criticism of social norms run through both Naum's and Lucas' poetry and Brauner's illustrations. The illustrations Brauner created for Naum's poetry volumes were his last works made in Romania, but planted seeds for later and for both. Returning to France in 1937, and especially after losing his eye, Brauner painting entered a new phase of transformation. Occult subject, magic, apparitions went hand in hand with an interest in archaic representations and what came to be called primitive art. With the outbreak of the Second World War, excuse me just a moment. Brauner moved with the Surrealist group to southern France, hoping to immigrate to the United States to escape the danger of internment in camps. Although there were several interventions facilitating the immigration of artists threatened by Nazi policies and war, Brauner was among those left behind. Thus, he had to hide in various southern French villages. This work, Stable, Unstable, is a record of that era where concerns for magical characters, metamorphoses, and hybrids combine with real references, because Théus is actually the name of a real French village from the south of the country. Thus, some of his works from this period reveal the fugitive condition of the artist. This is another magical work. Also, during this time of oppression, Brauner invented a wax painting technique that gave his works both a shiny appearance and a materiality evoking non-European or archaic art. The end of the war was marked by new obstacles and exclusions for Brauner. He describes the Totem of Wounded Subjectivity from 1948 as a representation of himself as a baby tortured by what he calls Stalinist teeth. The establishment of communism in Romania meant for him separation from his family, as well as many difficulties remaining in France, so residing in France, on the backdrop of the freezing relationship between Romania, between Socialist Romania and France. Nevertheless, the post-war era brought also recognition and ascent of for Brauner. He participated in many exhibitions, entered collections, and worked intensively, and as before, in multiple manners. I would like to end with this work, which was not part of the Timișoara exhibition. It is a self-portrait of a kind of cosmic reunion. At the same time, 1948, when the work was made, was a key year for Romania as the communist regime rise fully to power. Thus, this self-portrait marks in a way the total separation from his homeland and origins. Unwilling, but also intentional. From now on, Brauner, as a magician, constructs his entry into myth, into atemporality, over which only he himself can decide. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Irina. And I want to actually right away, while I'm digesting and everyone else is as well, I'm sure, pass on the mic to Dr. Nicola Baird, who is an independent art historian and curator affiliated with the Center of the Study of the Networked Image at London South Bank University. She specializes in 20th century and contemporary British and European art and cultural history, and is also passionate about European émigré histories and cultures. Previous exhibitions have included Fred Ullman, Berghaus in Hatton Gallery 2018, Czech Roots to Britain, Ben Uri Gallery 2019, Becoming Gustav Metzger, Ben Uri Gallery 2021, Knots, Johnny Briggs and Berghaus Contemporary Interventions into an Historic House, Berghaus 2021-22, and The Line is an Unreal Thing, Dorothy Mead and Edna Mann, LSBU 2024. She's section editor for Open Cultural Studies and editorial assistant at the International Yearbook of Futurism Studies, both published by De Gruyter. Nicola, the conversation is now yours.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for that introduction, and thank you, Irina, for that fascinating presentation. As Rachel mentioned, I thought we could just have a brief conversation before we hand over to, before we see if there are any audience questions. So firstly, I just wondered, where did your interest in Brauner stem from?
Well, I've been always interested in the avant-garde, and when I had to choose a subject for my BA thesis, I chose Brauner. He was, I think, very much on the rise then. A first monograph on him by Didier Semon had just appeared. So I just seen it, read it. I remember I also visited an exhibition in Rome about surrealism, and that was it. It was Brauner. So in this first, of course, very small attempt to reconsider Brauner, I dealt with these questions about his identity being built as a myth more than having origins in a proper, I don't know, biography or chronology. Because actually Brauner denied his I don't know, beginnings and even his let's call it like this, Romanian stage, although as I tried to show, it was more of a transnational stage, this first part of his career. So he kind of, not really denied, but obliterate his first stage, because he wanted to be this absolute magician of art and of, in a way, of his personal life. So this is it. But afterwards, I contributed to some journals and catalogs on Brauner, and he's still calling me from time to time.
I was wondering, you spoke about his work being on the rise, and obviously there was this big exhibition which you've told us about and shown us the catalogue. But I was wondering if we could explore a bit more the local reception of his work and why he is not perhaps as well known in Romania as he should be. You kind of mentioned and alluded to some difficulties, historically, and I wondered if you could say a bit more about that.
Well, after communism rose to power in Romania, the avant-garde was marginalized. Many of its members turned towards socialist realism, while others emigrated. But after the thaw, the avant-garde re-entered, especially in museums and in some memories by avant-garde artists, and also also became an academic subject. So this was during, let's say, during the 60s. So during the communist regime, avant-garde was studied, but with leaving aside some important issues, like the Jewish identity of some of its members, among which Brauner, or political aspects. So it was recovered, but only from an aesthetic perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And during post-communism, avant-garde was revived again because it was considered a kind of symbolic image of freedom regained after the fall of communism. And from that point on, this thorny issues came under scrutiny, but only in academic discourse. On a public level, this problems like the fascist regime in Romania, or the authoritarian regime from the 1930s on, or anti-Semitic laws, or the Holocaust. These, I would say, are still problematic issues in the public sphere. So within this context, Brauner had several problems, and that were difficult to deal with.
Mm-hmm. picking up on one of those threads, specifically Brauner's Jewishness and the way he was affected by Nazism, I wonder if we could talk about Brauner's Jewishness in relation to his upbringing, his later life, post-exile, and later influences and inspirations from the Kabbalah. And you mentioned also that he inscribed something on his body. I was intrigued by that as well.
No, I think it was maybe I was a little bit clumsy. I think you're referring to the portrait of Hitler. And in that case, I said something like the violence of Hitler's discourse is inscribed into his body because he had all sort of knives and swords and that were effectively piercing his body. He was a sort of conglomerate made of human features and of objects of violence.
I see. Okay.
Okay, so coming back to your question about the Jewish, about Brauner Jewish origin. I know that some scholars talked about his inspiration from Jewish sources, like the Kabbalah. But to be honest, I'm not very sure that Kabbalah had a special position within the whole series of occultisms and esoteric traditions in which Brauner was interested in. So I think it was just a stream within this larger interest. I cannot see exactly where, I mean, he, except for the painting I showed at the beginning with the Veterotestamentary Testament. I'm not sure it's correct. So subject matters from the Old Testament. I'm not sure that except those, there were others in which Brauner would refer to his Jewish identity. So I don't think he really wanted to connect his painting to his Jewish identity in a way, or to make this identity in a way to apparent in his paintings.
Well, again, following that thread, I suppose, I wondered if you might be able to explore a bit more these kind of inspirations and influences from mythology and alchemy and magic. I read somewhere that Camille Miranda, who, as you mentioned, was the curator of the exhibition in Timișoara, said it is in his Romanian roots that we can trace his taste for magic and spiritualism, both linked to his childhood. Brauner's life and work are intrinsically linked. After the war, his research into various occult symbols materializes into a syncretic language.
Yes, so there are, I would say, more there are many moments in which Brauner turned towards, let's call it like this, esoteric traditions or esoteric practices or spiritualism. during his childhood, his father practiced Spiritism. It was a widespread practice, not only in Romania, but I think everywhere in Europe at the beginning of the 20th century. And of course, during the 19th century. But of course, this might have impressed Brauner when he was very young. Some of his friends, Romanian friends, reported in their memories that he was attracted to spirits and cemeteries. I would say that during his youth, this is not, again, a very prominent thread in his within his artistic interests. Only after he got in contact with the Surrealist group led by Breton, he discovered many of these esoteric traditions, and of course these were connected to other interests in so-called primitive art, this non-European art in various forms was very much cherished among surrealists because they saw not only a way of escaping European tradition, but also they liked these magical powers that objects had.
Thank you. Perhaps just one more question from me then, I think, before we move on to audience questions. I was wondering if you think it's true to say that Brauner invented his own brand of surrealism, and I wondered if we could connect that with what you were saying about him creating this self-mythology in which chronology no longer mattered. So whether we could kind of explore those two aspects, the invention of his own brand of surrealism and then this self-mythologizing and chronology not mattering.
Well, I wouldn't say that he created his own brand of surrealism. His surrealism was multiple, so only the few works I shown to you prove that he worked in very different manners, and these manners were connected to various artists or various strategies of representation. So I see him as a sort of, but I think in a way every artist is like this, is more like in a sort of surrealist network than a single figure, a singled out figure. So the mythology, the other question of you is regarding constructing, building his own myth, is connected to him losing his eye. So for him, the self-portrait from 1921, a self-portrait in a way is strange, but very much connected to this surrealist obsession with vision. So that self-portrait became real, and the representation was not just a representation anymore. It was inscribed in his own body. And this event made him believed that he was a visionary, a magician, which anyway all surrealist artists strove in a way to be. But for him, the fact that he had this premonition of his accident was crucial and determined further this focus on magic and esotericism.
Thank you very much. I do have lots of other questions, but I think we better open up to the audience to have a couple of questions before we close. Rachel, will you?
Yeah, are there any questions? Because I see, Sorina, you made a comment, but you can speak for yourself. You're here as well. If you, yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah, I'm happy
I
to
did
bring
not
that.
see it.
That's okay. I'm happy to bring that to the fore. You were talking about the education around Brauner, and I was just giving part of my experience as the last generation of people under the communists. I did not get any information as part of the educational system on Victor Brauner, Tristan Tzara, and all of the others, and especially nothing on who they are and how they essentially represent themselves and their ethnic groups within the Romanian society. There was no information whatsoever. And I still don't believe that that is the case today, that the gap that makes Romania what it is, a complex cultural environment, is not plugged, in my opinion. It's one of the reasons why Carta de Vineri is alive, is to bring that to the fore.
Yeah, I think you're right. But still, I think people who, I mean, academics who dealt with these issues also try to give this further to their students. But of course, on a, let's say, for a more general public, these are still very problematic issues, and they are kind of unintegrated into the, let's say, to the grand narrative of art history in Romania.
But like talks like this seem to make that happen, right?
I hope.
Carrying out and I mean, assuming that the Romanians are understanding English, right? So, but do you think the world is opening up a little, and this information is being more dispersed, or
Yes, and the retrospective, the Brauner retrospective in Timișoara was part of this opening.
Right.
So that's why it was very, very important. And I'm glad I could talk about it 2 years after happening.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. So I have the feeling you have to give a lot of talks now and organize a lot of exhibitions to bring people beyond Victor Brauner out and to bring them, of course, to your students. That's, educating the next generation and kind of continuing the torch, right, of knowledge. Yeah. Thank you so very much. I feel like we're just getting into the talk about Romania and the cultural remembrance and memory, but I am afraid our time is over. And I think Sorina, you wanted to announce an event that is coming up in your program.
Yeah, to actually respond to what you were saying about the opening of the various discussions, the next events that we have as part of Carta de Vino is organized by Dr. Nicola Baird, who, as you said, is an independent art historian and curator and a collaborator of DOR. Will be a pre-recorded event, and it will be published on the 4th of July. Will be centered around the Treasury of the Roma, Amare Somnaca, with Dr. Jana Horvatova, Director of Museum of Romani Culture from Brno, Czech Republic. So again, this is another strand of the multicultural diversity that essentially the communism tried to suppress and eliminate by making us some sort of a gray block of the new man. But essentially, Romania is much more than that, and this is what we're trying to showcase, among other things. So thank you.
Thank you so very much. Thank you, Irina. Thank you, Nicola and Sorina. This was a very special gathering, and thank you so much for that. And
Thank you.
take care and be well. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.